remember Probal is my teacher at University of Hyderabad. There, I went to do my MPhil in linguistics, and in those days, not knowing whether I would be a good linguist, trying to do interface studies between social linguistics and syntax, I had also told myself that maybe I'll not get admission into linguistics, but there is translation studies MPhil as well. So I had tried to come up with some proposal around translation studies from Gujarati short stories into English and develop the school of short story writing in Gujarati. That is my mother tongue. And those years with Prabal, as my senior Rekha told us, of seeing a teacher walking with two bags on each of his shoulder. And at some point, I quizzed Prabal. I used to quiz Prabal. I was such a student who would not care how my questions will come across to my teacher. So I told Prabal one day, saying, why do you carry these two bags? So he says, that's the way I do division of labor in my reading tasks and things like that. And the other question that was a bit uncomfortable was, I said, look, there are people who think that you don't drink water that is being taken from the cooler and you carry your water from home. And how do you make sense of that? And that was quite a difficult question to ask, but I was that sort of student that I would rather talk about his behavior in corridors. I would face my teacher and ask him. And he said, the thing about his body and the kidney stone and the medical advice that followed, and that was Prabal for us. Like you can ask him questions that would sound judgmental to anyone else, and you would think 1,000 times before voicing those questions. Like Prabal says, I was someone who tried to do linguistics, and I used to also like a great deal of walking back from the department up to the point when his house is close by, and then I'll take the walk back. And suddenly, the person who was so much generous with his time that he would not deny you the opportunity to walk with him and talk and answer questions. I remember one specific conversation that sounded to me like, oh, how would I defend my MPhil dissertation now? Because there was a part of syntax of negation that I was trying to explain, and suddenly Prabal said, have you read about Otto Jespersen and the Jespersen cycle? And I had no knowledge that how would I, come up with a defense now, because something that I'm trying to explain has already been explained in literature. And Probal mentioning Otto Jespersen, what would come next? Would he say that I'm trying to explain something without attributing it to someone who has discovered these facts? In other languages and in my language, that facts do explain the way the negation behaves. But he was very sincere in receiving the reply that I gave him and said that, look, I mean, you need to attribute that Jespersen had this explanation. And so if you have not read Jespersen's explanation, you please do. And literally, I know how the MPhil dissertation was written with Prabal in conversation. He was much more than just a teacher, a mentor, a guide. Just before his passing away, I was wondering why would Probal bestow upon me someone who had taken a long duration before he came to Esperanto, something that Probal loved a great deal. For those of you who do not know Esperanto and a bit of a history, I would have heard, like anyone else who was at Hyderabad or Deccan with Prabal or at Indian Statistical Institute, about Esperanto. And I had heard about Marquettes also. There were conversations in 2002 that I remember, in 2001 that I remember, but I never made a sincere effort to learn Esperanto. Prabal said it's very easy to learn the language, but it was only thanks to the coincidence of me and Giridhar Rao being colleagues at Asim Premji University here in Bengaluru that I sort of started learning Esperanto in conversations with Giri. And very soon I would hesitantly speak a phrase or two with Prabal on phone, or recently there have been WhatsApp conversations where I have tried writing in Esperanto to him. And suddenly in April, he calls me. I am with my family who is visiting because my son has the school holidays. And he says, "See, it will take me time to send you books that I want to send to you." And it was a difficult conversation to have him because it's a running bus and I'm trying to get what Prabodha is trying to tell me. The very short that I got of it is that sometime in May I would receive books from Prabal. And when actually the trekking courier notes and all that came, I told Giri, and I'm telling everyone today, that there are 4 boxes full of books of world classics translated in Esperanto. And I'm still, I wrote to Prabal that I'm overwhelmed with this gesture because I'm the very bad linguistic student who would ever be remembered at Hyderabad University to have lost Probal Das' book called Anti-Symmetry of Syntax. He had a copy, he had given it to me, I had lost it. And someone who loses a book of that great relevance in linguistics when he is back there with you, you decide to give him a very valuable collection of Esperanto books 26 years later. Thanks, Koran Dankon Prabalda. You would be missed by all people whom you had met and whose lives you had touched. And again, sincerely, apologies for being that student who was out of campus without telling you when it is.